This week on Arizona Illustrated, what comes after?
You never know when it's coming, and it presents itself, and it just takes me right back to the trauma.
Keeping the culture alive.
She embodies all of the aspects that are important when we think of the masters of the traditional art.
Second chances for some.
I'm just in disbelief that this is now my life after 10 plus years and behind the gates.
And an ode to Tumamoc Hill. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. It seems there's a new report every day. A high-profile, powerful man accused of sexual harassment, assault, or even rape. It's in our headlines, on our newscast, in tweets and posts. And the hashtag #MeToo campaign has given voice and strength to many people who've been afraid to tell their story for fear of retribution, public shame, or just not being believed. For those who have been harassed or assaulted, the pain and fear does not fade fast or go away easily. And in some survivors, it's been diagnosed as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, a condition more commonly associated with combat veterans returning from war.
About 7% of the U.S. population will experience PTSD at some point in their lives. For these millions of Americans, the fight or flight response that helps people survive dangerous or difficult situations doesn't fade. They stay on high alert for months or years after a traumatic event, often beset by flashbacks or nightmares, unable to sleep, and compelled to avoid places or things that remind them of their trauma. The incident may be over, but the fear and anxiety keep coming back.
For women, one of the most prevalent ways that post-traumatic stress disorder occurs is not in the military or combat duty. It's usually some form of interpersonal violence, whether that's rape or molestation.
The sound of a bathroom stall closing is a trigger. Certain smells are triggers. Certain, touch is a trigger. And you never know when it's coming. You never know when there's a trigger around the corner. And it presents itself, and it just takes me right back to the trauma, right back to the point where I feel completely helpless.
As a survivor of sexual abuse and assault, Danielle McFarland faced PTSD symptoms so severe they drove her to attempt suicide 4 times.
Initially, PTSD was like trying to walk through quicksand, and it didn't matter what I tried to do. It seemed like it just got worse, and I was getting deeper, and it was harder to make any positive changes in my life. Everybody I knew was going out and living these, amazing lives, and I just would go to work and I'd come home and I felt safe. That was the one place that I could go. It was my little den.
For people who have post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the key things is that their lives become very constricted. Almost like you've gone in and built a castle for yourself, and you're trying really hard to keep things out. And so you create like a higher castle, and then you do a moat, and that drawbridge is up, and the castle gets higher and taller. But still things can fly over, still information gets in, so you just keep making your castle bigger and taller. What treatment does is it comes in and it knocks down the walls.
Treating PTSD is the same, whether in veterans or civilians. It can involve medication and other tools, but the most effective treatments force sufferers to revisit their trauma over and over again, to seek out the triggers they've been avoiding.
So we might have a person talk about from when it started all the way to the end, and then they repeat that over and over and over again, so that it becomes more like a file that's filed in a filing cabinet.
To touch base on or talk about at this point?
What I tell my group and what I tell the people that I see individually is the trauma is never going to go away, but you need it to become a bad memory.
Counselor Kim Lindley leads PTSD support groups, and has developed an intensive trauma recovery program that's focused on civilians. But programs like hers are rare. A 2015 study in the Harvard Review of Psychiatry found that treatment resources for non-veterans with PTSD are limited and hard to find.
It is very hard to know where to turn for this because it was an invisible diagnosis for a very, very long time.
Sure, normal time.
And the stigma of seeking help adds to the problem.
Trauma comes with a lot of guilt and shame, and so people don't like to seek services for it, and so they don't even ask.
Have a good rest of the day.
Danielle McFarland found the help she needed, and it brought her back into her life. She learned that she had no reason to feel ashamed, and that seeking help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
I watched a documentary many years ago where a soldier shared his symptoms and his experiences. I remember him talking about nightmares and waking up and being curled in a ball, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been there, I've done that, that's happened to me. I'm not alone. You're not alone. You don't have to deal with this on your own, and just don't give up.
56-year-old Carmen Baron grew up in a small town in Sonora, Mexico, where as a young girl, her mother would place her on her lap while she worked at a sewing machine. That's where Carmen first learned how to sew, and when she first fell in love with Folklorico.
Well, to me, it's part of myself. If I see some group dancing, it just gets my whole body to go and see. When the music used to come, like bands used to play in my hometown, like the fiestas, it was a ticklish in my feet. It was just something como hormigueo in my feet. In 1973, my father moved us to United States. I found out that it was more people from different countries, hungry to learn for something that you don't have. So I started taking Baile Folklorico for 8 years at Pima. After graduating from College of Architecture, I used to have a very good job and I had the money to buy all the fabrics. In architecture, we use a lot of lines, a lot of colors, we use math, and everything has to be in proportion. I thought I was gonna run out of yellow threads, I still have one more to go. I come to different stores for shopping for fabrics.
Think I need anything else?
3-4 times a week.
No, you actually have to get in that line down there. Okay, this is $1.49. Think I need anything else?
That'll be it. Let's see. Oh, this is good quality. I see materials and I say, immediately pops in my mind. I can do this. I can be pulling this. Don't you think this gonna be good for a liner for the Meilin custom? Actually, my husband is the best one. He helps me a lot in doing the shopping.
So a fabric is not just a piece of cloth.
You think it's gonna look good?
Now a fabric has a certain shine, a certain feel, a certain element that conveys in one particular moment an emotion and in another moment another emotion.
Pero es como forro. Le pueden poner un poquito.
People like Carmen become the holders of this kind of detailed knowledge.
No, it's too much. It has to be just organ. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
When we first encountered Carmen, we were pretty taken back by what a treasure she was here in our midst, in Tucson.
Well, this carport, it was empty 25 years ago, and since then I started collecting materials.
She embodies all of the aspects that are important when we think of a masters of the traditional art. She adds so many dimensions of texture and depth to what we thought we knew about the folklorico dance movement.
I'm crazy about folklorico because it's always moving, always color. And I'm that type of person that I can never stay still. No, not yet. That's not your turn. That's another costume. That's a different costume, okay? In 1974, I started teaching folklorico to children from 1 year old and up. You're much better. Tie your shoes. Tie your shoes in your place. Okay, come on over here.
She's strict, but in a good way.
Stay there. In 1, in 2, turn in your place.
It makes everybody pay attention more.
Up. Bend your knees. Bend your knees. I just don't want sloppy step. If they had to jump, pick up the knees, they had to do it. Skip, 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 skip. Don't leave your knees stiff, okay? It makes me very tired. I sweat a lot because I had to be running all the time, showing the step, bending down. Looking up. Face, face.
I love to just dance. Just the way that you get to move. When you sometimes jump, you feel like you can fly. Well, I've known her since I've danced here, so for a really long time.
Lila is our only daughter, and we were so excited to introduce her to the world. Since my parents are from Mexico, I wanted her to be able to learn as much as she can from Carmen so that she can carry this forward.
Carmen has been at this for a long time, and if you think about the timeline of her body of work, she really belongs to that era when the folklorico movement begins to spread in the United States.
That the Chicano movement in Los Angeles made
in the 1960s and early 70s, Mexican Americans in the United States, as part of their response to the civil rights movement and their desire for participation, social justice, equity, began to grab onto the arts that came from Mexico. And folklorico became, in a very interesting way, part of this movement, but it also had this very strong component of showmanship. That made it particularly susceptible to be eventually some sort of a stereotypical representation of what a Mexican fiesta would be like, when in fact it was always connected to the struggle of communities to achieve social justice.
Llévate una ganas.
Welcome to Canoa. I hope you enjoy the folklorico dancers. And please look in the other buildings. We have great displays today.
Do they gonna change right away to the other one?
The interest has always been in navigating two different terrains. On the one hand, the educational grassroots aspect of bringing people together. At the same time, there's this aspect of the artistry within it.
Everybody's been getting hit on time, so I've not been.
And Carmen is right on the spot of that kind of craftsmanship that makes folklorico more than just a fun dance on stage.
Okay, lista. She's made so many dresses. It's great that she can make them, but it's just like amazing how she can make them.
She is knowledgeable about the tradition, where it comes from, the roots, the authentic versions of this type of form in its original context. But she's also an artist who adds a touch of flair.
Entonces baila guerrero primero.
This one is called guerrero. It's basically a dress, but there's also a skirt underneath.
Go, don't get too close. Go, go, go. I like the folklorico all the time to be fresh. That's why I don't dance. I give the opportunity to the young people because they look much nicer. For my group, there is always something different because I enjoy doing something new all the time.
People get recognition in galleries, in big performances, in shows. Very few of the people behind the scenes
Cuando bailen,
who are the holders of knowledge and who are so devoted to the specific practices of keeping something alive.
I always sewing and sewing. It's like breathing to me. Before we were able to eat there, but not anymore. Actually, I've been in the hospital many, many, many times. Lot of times. And a lot of time is just have been told it's a matter of death or life. And I say, no, in my mind, my kids are still young, they're not prepared, I keep thinking, and I say, I have a lot of materials and I keep buying more material, like if I'm never gonna die. I'm very positive that I'm gonna live to 100 years. I hope, because I have a lot to do.
In our next story, we meet formerly incarcerated men with personal stories about the emotional, psychological, and logistical challenges they face while re-entering society and the support systems that make all the difference. After serving more than a decade in prison, their time has come for a second chance.
The fact that I get to wake up every day and essentially choose my own destiny, that's all any of us really want when we're incarcerated. We just want to wake up the next day and be in control of our lives. My name is Joe Watson. We are in the backyard of my home that I share with my wife. I've been out of prison for about 4 months now, around 120 days. I'm constantly reminding myself of what it was like to live in that environment. I wake up every day next to my wife. When I come in the kitchen to make her a cup of coffee, for instance, I'm just in disbelief that this is now my life after 10 plus years of what I went through. The transition has been really smooth. I have such a wonderful network of support. The overwhelming majority of those relationships were forged behind the fences and behind the gates.
Me and Joe Watson, good dude. I don't even know how we became really good friends, but I just remember our conversation being deeper than that first level. And we would just talk about kids. He's a dad, I was a dad, and we talked about missing moments. You know, we'd hear about our children doing this, or we'd get a letter about our children doing that, or a picture, and you know, what's absent? Us. My name is Clyde Lee Harden. I'm a professional tattoo artist located at Empire Tattoo.
What's up, buddy?
First time I ever met him, I thought, I'm not gonna like this dude. He's bald-headed, doesn't know how to dress.
I dressed just like you.
Unfortunately, that's why I didn't like the way you dressed. Me and Joe, you know, would always talk tattoos. He wanted a few, he didn't know who to go to. And one day he was like, hey, give me one. We were in the library in the bookkeeping room, and I pulled out all the equipment. We had an hour or two to spend, and I gave him probably his most meaningful tattoo. I talked to Joe almost daily, you know, just to say, hey, you're all right. You know, oh, I don't have a job yet. Don't worry about it, it's gonna come, you know. You're gonna get 100 no's, but that 101, it's gonna be the yes. The fact that I've done it now a couple of years and it's worked for me, I gotta give that back. And you got your toys? You sure? Family it's what's paramount for me right now. I wake up early, get my workout in or my run in early. And then after that, the kids are up and it's time to, get them moving and get them going in the right direction. At school, daycare, after school programs. Go. It's still the small stuff. I think it'll always be the small things. Being able to pick out what I want to wear and it not be orange, and oh yeah, more orange. And be happy and be loved, yeah? All right, bye, buddy. Peace. I'll see you later. Being able to pick out whether I want to have cereal or a bagel. To be able to sit at a red light and just sit and be, and know that you earn that right. To be a licensed driver, to be a registered driver, it's a small thing.
I'm Charles Pyle. I'm a United States Magistrate Judge, retired about 6 months ago. And I'm also, in November of 2012, along with Mayor Jonathan Rothschild, started the Second Chance Tucson Coalition to help people with a criminal history successfully reintegrate with the community here in Tucson. I believe there's approximately 40,000 state prisoners. About 17,000 get released each year, and I suspect it's maybe about 2,500 to 3,000 will come to Pima County. They need health care. I think access is starting to allow them in the state prison to apply before they get released. They need government identification. Before even employment, they have to have stable housing. It's just critical. They need to reconnect with family or other positive people, and then they need employment. And all of these things are incredibly difficult.
I want to see the interview with Luis. I have an incredibly unique experience. The majority of people who get out of prison go through something very difficult upon reentry. I think I've been given more opportunities than the vast majority of prisoners that I did time with. I think being white and being a veteran, being articulate, those are probably the biggest factors in people just on first impression giving me an opportunity. I think that people who have served should get opportunities, but people who haven't served should get the same opportunities. And that's what was offered to me at the Tucson complex, was people who just wanted to be decent and give me a hand up. But I'm not sure that they would have necessarily done that with somebody who wasn't a vet. Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
Good. I am definitely still system involved. I am on what's called community supervision until March of 2019. I will see my parole officer once a month. Even if I were still staying at the halfway house, riding the bus to some job that didn't feel purposeful, life would still be great.
One of the things that I think employers really need to understand is that it is difficult for these people to get that first job when they're out of prison. And as a result, the people who have had that aha moment and know they've got to change their life around are going to be so grateful for the opportunity that's going to really be able to change their lives. They are going to be your most loyal, hardworking employees.
I was out in the middle of the summer pushing a shovel and just happy about it. I was happy that somebody actually gave me a shot.
We need to get away from this incredibly negative stereotype of people from a criminal history, and we need to recognize the humanity of these people, and these people do want to have people who love them, a safe place to live, and to be comfortable and healthy.
I was really lucky in so many ways. Tucson is so different than any other prison town where I've been incarcerated in Arizona. The people in this community really want to take an active role in helping people transition back into the community to re-enter successfully.
Life is all about seconds second chances. In my case, third chances. You know what I mean? Like, I finally got it right.
Thousands of residents and visitors walk the paved path to the top of Tumamoc Hill each year. And now the University of Arizona's Desert Laboratory has launched a new app called the Tucson Tour. It tells the historical and cultural history of the area and why Tumamoc is considered the birthplace of modern ecology, all meant to enhance the walker experience and give a greater understanding of this unique and important place. Here's our story from earlier this year when we took a walk up Tumamoc Hill.
It's pretty amazing that Tucson has this. Come out here on any given afternoon and you'll see hundreds of people walking, and they're from all over the city. I'm part of the river of people moving up and down this hill.
We come here 5 days a week. Since we started, we maybe not go all the way to the top, now we can. We just love it, just going and seeing the view at the end as a reward.
You'll be walking and someone just like sprints past you, and you're just like, someday I'll be there, hopefully.
The trail here on Tumamoc dates over 4,000 years. This site is the longest continuously habited site in North America, and that really dates to the water flowing perennial year-round in the Santa Cruz River. For many of the same reasons we appreciate today, the views, the commanding features of it were utilized by the original inhabitants of this valley, and there's actually two distinct periods of settlement when there were villages on the top of the hill. So collectively, this is probably one of the richest archaeological sites in North America. Really, in the last 5 to 10 years, kind of seeing the high numbers of about 1,500 people a day or so use that we have currently. This is not a park, this is a research station. The University of Arizona with Pima County, we're stewards of this land. It's a great privilege to be able to walk here, but that comes with responsibility.
You can download the free app for the Tumamoc Tour by visiting tumamoc.arizona.edu. Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.